Commander Lisa Hayes stood at the main viewport of the Galactic Alliance flagship U.S. Defender. Her face was grim as she watched another Allied cruiser explode in a brilliant flash of light. The ship's crew of 300 souls vanished in seconds. "Status report," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding before her. Officer Jack Perry's fingers flew across his console. "Not good, Commander. We've lost 30% of our fleet in the last hour. The Celestials are advancing through Sector 7. At this rate, they'll reach Earth in 3 days." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. 3 days. After fighting these beings for nearly a year, the Alliance was down to just 3 days before humanity's homeworld fell. The Celestials had appeared without warning 14 months ago, massive ships that seemed to bend reality around them, commanded by entities so powerful that many civilizations simply called them gods. They had already conquered or destroyed over 200 worlds. "Get me Admiral Wilson on the comm," Lisa ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the tired face of Admiral Wilson. His uniform was wrinkled, and dark circles hung under his eyes. "Commander Hayes, tell me you have good news," he said. "I wish I did, sir. The Defender's shields are holding, but we can't say the same for the rest of the fleet. We need to consider evacuating Earth." The Admiral shook his head. "With what ships, Commander? We barely have enough vessels to evacuate a single city, let alone a planet of 10 billion. Lisa knew he was right. A heavy silence filled the command bridge. "Sir," Jack said, breaking the quiet, "there is one option we haven't tried." Lisa turned to her tactical officer. "This isn't the time for holding back, Perry." Jack hesitated, then pulled up a file on his tablet. "Protocol Omega, ma'am." Admiral Wilson's face went pale. "That's not an option. The Council forbade it." "With all due respect, sir," Jack replied, "the Council isn't watching their worlds burn one by one." Lisa took the tablet from Jack. Protocol Omega contained information discovered in ancient ruins on Mars, ruins far older than any human civilization. It described a ritual, a way to summon help. "The warnings are clear, sir," Lisa said, scrolling through the file. "Every alien language in the database has the same message about this ritual. Never invoke the Earthborn. Death follows in their wake." "But that's just it," Jack said, leaning forward. "The Earthborn. It's talking about humans." Lisa frowned. "That's impossible. Humans have never been a spacefaring race until the last century." The ship rocked as a blast hit their shields. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Direct hit," called out the shield operator. "Shields at 60%. The Admiral's hologram flickered. "What exactly does this Protocol Omega suggest, Harry?" "The ritual requires materials we can only find in the core of a dying star. But if the translations are correct, it can summon beings that even the Celestials fear." Lisa studied the ancient text more carefully. "These warnings, they're not just cautions. They're written in terror." Another blast rocked the ship. "Shields at 40%. The Admiral's face hardened with resolve. "How long to gather what we need for this ritual?" Jack checked his calculations. "With our fastest ship, 36 hours, sir." "That cuts it close to the Celestials' arrival," Lisa noted. The Admiral nodded. "Commander Hayes, you have my authorization to implement Protocol Omega. God help us if we're making a mistake." Lisa straightened her uniform. "Prepare a scout ship. We need volunteers for a mission to a dying star." As the crew rushed to carry out her orders, Lisa stared out at the battlefield. Alliance ships crumbled under the Celestials' weapons. She wondered what kind of power they were about to unleash, and whether it would save them or doom them all. They were desperate and out of time. Their only hope lay in summoning the one species even the gods feared. Science Officer Samantha Woods bent over the ancient text, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. Scattered across her lab table were pieces of alien technology, star charts, and cups of cold coffee. She had been working for 18 hours straight to decode the exact requirements for Protocol Omega. "I think I understand it now," she said to Commander Hayes, who had just entered the lab. The ritual needs 5 rare elements that only form in the heart of a dying star, and the pattern of the summoning circle must be perfect. Lisa looked at the complex diagrams Samantha had drawn. Can we do this? Yes, but getting those elements will be nearly impossible. We need to send a ship into the core of Red Giant VX-439. The heat and pressure would crush most vessels. Captain Greg Miller stepped forward from the doorway. My ship can do it. The Falcon has the best heat shields in the fleet. Lisa turned to him. Greg, this is a suicide mission. He nodded. I know, but what choice do we have? If the Celestials reach Earth, we all die anyway. While Greg prepared his ship for the dangerous mission, communications specialist Alan Webb made a discovery in the Alliance archives. He rushed to Lisa's quarters, tablet in hand. Commander, you need to see this, he said, out of breath. I've been searching all references to humans and alien records. They're everywhere, but always with warnings. He showed her ancient texts from a dozen alien civilizations. Each mentioned humans with fear. This one is from the Arcturians, 10,000 years ago, Alan explained. It calls humans the Void Walkers and says they should never be allowed to leave their prison world. Prison world? Lisa asked. You mean Earth? Alan nodded. And here, the Zentavi describe humans as reality benders who can break the laws of physics. Every record says the same thing. Humans are dangerous and unpredictable. Lisa frowned. But we've never been a threat to anyone. We only reached Mars 50 years ago. That's what's strange, Alan replied. These records talk about humans, as if we once traveled the stars and caused great destruction. But that's impossible. The ship's comm system buzzed. Commander Hayes to the bridge. Captain Miller's team is returning. When Lisa reached the bridge, she saw the Falcon limping toward the Defender. Half the ship was dark, its hull glowing red from heat damage. Open a channel, she ordered. Greg's face appeared on screen, bloody and tired. Mission accomplished, Commander. We got the elements, but at a cost. Half my crew didn't make it. 6 hours later, Samantha had prepared the ritual chamber. The rare elements were arranged in a complex pattern on the floor. Strange devices from the Mars ruins hummed with energy around the room. The Celestials are 12 hours from Earth, Jack reported. We need to do this now. Samantha stood in the center of the pattern. The ritual requires someone to channel the energy. I studied it the most, so it should be me. Lisa nodded reluctantly. Begin. Samantha started reciting words in a language no human should know. The elements began to glow, first red, then blue, then with a light no one had seen before. The air in the room grew thick. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them. Alarms blared as the ship's sensors detected energy spikes beyond their measuring capacity. Something's happening. Alan shouted over the noise. A tear opened in the center of the room. Not like a door or portal, but like reality itself was being ripped open. Everyone backed away, weapons raised. Through the tear, they could see another place, what looked like a simple office with bookshelves and a desk. A man sitting at that desk looked up, surprised. He stood and cautiously approached his side of the tear. "Hello," he called out, his voice oddly normal amid the cosmic chaos. "What is this?" Samantha, her body shaking from channeling the energy, managed to speak. "We need help. Please." The man hesitated only briefly, then stepped through the tear into their world. As he did, every alien in the room backed away in terror. The man who stepped through the tear looked ordinary. He was middle-aged with graying hair and glasses. He wore a simple brown sweater with patches on the elbows and carried a pen in his shirt pocket. He looked around the room with wide eyes. "Where am I?" he asked. "What just happened?" Lisa stepped forward cautiously. "I'm Commander Lisa Hayes of the Galactic Alliance. We summoned you." The man blinked several times. "Summoned me? Like magic? That's impossible." He adjusted his glasses. I'm Paul Mason. I teach history at Coastal Maine University. I was just grading papers in my office. Jack shook his head in frustration. This is what the ancient ritual brought us. A teacher. We needed warriors. Paul looked confused. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I really should get back. I have classes tomorrow. The alien crew members kept their distance. One blue-skinned communications officer whispered to another, "It doesn't know what it is." Samantha, still weak from performing the ritual, stepped forward. "Mr. Mason, we brought you here because our worlds are under attack by beings of immense power. The ancient texts said humans could help us." Paul laughed nervously. "I think you have the wrong person. I've never even fired a gun." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Jack rushed to his console. "Celestial scout ship. It's breached our defensive line." The ship rocked violently as it took a hit. Crew members grabbed onto nearby surfaces to steady themselves. A panel near Paul exploded in sparks, making him jump back. "Shields at 20%, someone shouted. "We can't take another hit like that," Lisa said grimly. The Celestial scout ship came around for another attack. Its weapons charged, glowing with an unearthly light. Paul looked at a nearby weapons panel. Without thinking, he moved toward it. "Sir, don't touch that," Jack yelled. "Those controls take years to master." But Paul's hands were already moving across the panel with impossible speed. His eyes seemed unfocused, as if he was seeing something no one else could see. "This is strange," he muttered. "I somehow know how this works." He pressed a sequence of buttons, and the Defender's main cannon fired. The beam hit the Celestial scout ship with perfect accuracy, slicing through its shields as if they weren't there. The scout ship exploded in a silent flash of light. Everyone on the bridge stared at Paul in shock. I don't know how I did that," Paul said, looking at his hands in disbelief. "It just felt right." The alien crew backed away further, some making signs to ward off evil. "The legends were true," whispered one green-skinned officer. "They're connected to something beyond our understanding." Lisa approached Paul cautiously. "Mr. Mason, what else do you know how to do?" Paul shook his head. "Nothing. I'm just a history teacher. This doesn't make any sense." Jack checked his sensors. "Commander, there are more celestial ships approaching. A full battle group this time." Lisa looked at Paul thoughtfully. "If one human could do this." She turned to Samantha. "Can we bring more through?" Samantha nodded weakly. "The portal is still stable. We can bring a few more, but I don't know how long I can maintain it." "Do it," Lisa ordered. Paul stepped closer to Lisa. "Wait, you want more people like me. But I don't understand what's happening." "Neither do we," Lisa admitted. "But the Celestials will reach Earth in less than 12 hours. We're out of options." Paul looked around at the alien technology, the stars visible through the viewport, and the fear in the eyes of the alien crew members. "I'll help however I can," he finally said. "But I think you should explain what these Celestials are, and why everyone here seems so afraid of humans." "We will," Lisa promised. "But first, we need more of your kind." Samantha returned to the ritual chamber to summon more humans, while Paul stayed on the bridge, still trying to understand how he had known exactly how to destroy a warship he'd never seen before. 4 more humans stepped through the portal into the ritual chamber. They looked around in confusion, just as Paul had done. Betty Clark wore a hard hat and construction clothes, dust still on her boots. Kevin Wright was in nurse's scrubs with a stethoscope around his neck. Nickel Adams had a college backpack slung over one shoulder. Frank Hill, the oldest of the group, wore simple clothes but stood with the straight back of someone who had served in the military. "What's going on?" Betty asked. "One minute I was operating a crane, and now I'm wherever this is." Lisa explained the situation quickly. Earth was in danger. Powerful beings called the Celestials were attacking. The humans had been summoned because ancient texts said they could help. "So we're what, some kind of secret weapon?" Frank asked, His voice calm despite the strange situation. "We don't know exactly," Lisa admitted. "But when Paul destroyed a celestial scout ship, he did it by instinct. He knew how to use our weapons without training." The humans looked at Paul with surprise. "I teach history," Paul said with a shrug. "I've never even played a space video game." Kevin, the nurse, stepped forward. "This is crazy. I should be at the hospital. My patients need me. Everyone on Earth needs you now," Samantha said. "The Celestials will reach our planet in 10 hours. I still don't understand why you think we can help," Nicole said, adjusting her backpack nervously. Jack brought up a screen showing alien text. "These warnings about humans are in every ancient alien language we found. They all say the same thing. Humans are dangerous because they exist partly outside the rules that govern the universe." Betty laughed. "I barely passed high school science. I don't know anything about bending the universe." Suddenly, alarms blared again. The ship shook violently. "Celestial forces have broken through our outer defenses," an officer shouted. Lisa turned to the humans. "We don't have time for a full explanation. Will you help us?" Frank straightened up. "I did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I can fight." The others looked uncertain, but they all nodded. "Good," Lisa said. "Jack will show you to the weapons bay." "Wait," Kevin said. "I'm a nurse. I heal people, not hurt them." "Then you can help in the medical bay," Lisa said. "We have wounded." The humans were led to different parts of the ship. Betty and Frank went with Jack to learn about weapons. Kevin followed a medical officer. Nicole and Paul stayed on the bridge with Lisa. "Commander," a voice called over the ship's comm. "We have celestial borders in Sector 4. Frank picked up an alien weapon as if he had used it his whole life. "Point me to Sector 4. Jack looked surprised. "You know how to use that?" "Somehow, yes," Frank said. His eyes had the same unfocused look that Paul's had shown earlier. Betty examined a control panel. "This controls the ship's structural integrity, right? I could reinforce the barriers between sectors." Jack stared at her. "How did you know that?" "It took me 3 years to learn the engineering systems." Betty shrugged. "I work construction. Structures make sense to me." In the medical bay, Kevin looked at the alien medical equipment and started using it without instructions. His hands moved confidently as he treated a wounded alien crew member. On the bridge, Nichols stared at the star charts. "These jump calculations are wrong. If you adjust the coordinates by 0.03 degrees, you could get to the rally point in half the time." Lisa looked at the young college student in shock. "Our best navigators came up with those coordinates." "Well, they're not optimized," Nichols said simply. Paul watched all of this with growing understanding. "We're not just random humans, are we? There's something about us that makes us different." Lisa nodded slowly. "The aliens on this ship are terrified of you, not because of what you've done, but because of what they believe you are." "And what's that?" Paul asked. Before Lisa could answer, the ship rocked again. A massive celestial warship appeared on the main screen. "They're targeting our engines," an officer reported. "Not if I can help it," Nicole said, her hands already moving across the navigation controls. Nicole's fingers flew across the navigation controls. The massive defender ship moved with unexpected grace, dodging the celestial warship's attack at the last second. "That's impossible," Jack whispered. "No one can maneuver a ship this size that quickly." Nicole just smiled. "It's basic physics. Action and reaction." Frank had organized the humans into an effective fighting unit. Despite only having known each other for a few hours, they worked together as if they had trained for years. They moved through the ship's corridors, pushing back the celestial boarding parties. "Betty, watch that junction," Frank called out. "Kevin, stay behind and help any wounded." Betty held up her hand suddenly. "Wait, they're going to come through that wall, not the door." "How do you know?" Frank asked. Before she could answer, the wall exploded inward. 3 celestial soldiers pushed through the new opening, exactly where Betty had pointed. Frank fired his weapon, taking down 2 of them. Betty knocked the 3rd one back with a piece of debris. "I don't know how I knew," Betty said. "I just felt it coming." In the medical bay, Kevin worked tirelessly. His hands glowed slightly as he treated the wounded aliens, who watched him with a mixture of fear and awe. "Your cells are regenerating too fast," one alien doctor said as he scanned a patient Kevin had just treated. "This is not normal healing." Kevin looked at his hands. "I'm just doing what I always do, helping people get better." On the bridge, Paul studied the tactical displays. The Celestials are changing their attack pattern. They're pulling forces away from the other worlds they've conquered. Lisa frowned. "Why would they do that?" "They're focusing everything on us now," Paul said. "On the humans." Admiral Wilson's hologram appeared. "Commander Hayes, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Celestial forces are retreating from dozens of worlds." "They're afraid," Samantha said, looking at the humans on the bridge. "They're afraid of what we've done." Jack checked his sensors. "The Celestial flagship is approaching. It's massive." "Commander, can we fight it?" Lisa asked. "Not directly," Jack admitted. "Its weapons could tear through our shields in seconds." Nichols studied the star charts again. "But we could use the gravity well of that nearby star to slingshot around and attack from behind." "That would put us dangerously close to the star's radiation belt," Jack argued. Nichols shrugged. "So we adjust our shields to compensate." Paul looked at her in amazement. "How do you know all this?" "Astrophysics major," Nichols said. "This is just scaled-up versions of problems we solve in class." Lisa gave the orders, and the Defender followed Nichols' plan. They swung around the star, shields glowing from the intense radiation, and emerged behind the Celestial flagship. "Fire everything we have," Lisa ordered. The Defender's weapons struck the Celestial ship's unprotected rear section. The massive vessel shuddered under the attack. "It's working," Jack shouted. But their victory was short-lived. The damaged Celestial flagship turned slowly, its main weapon powering up. "Brace for impact," Lisa called out. The humans on the bridge looked at each other. Without speaking, they seemed to reach an understanding. Paul moved to the weapons console. Nichols stayed at navigation. Both their hands moved in perfect coordination. The Defender fired again. At the exact moment it changed course. The combination was perfect. The Celestial weapon discharged harmlessly into space, while the Defender's attack struck a critical system on the enemy ship. The Celestial flagship began to break apart. "They're retreating," Jack announced as the remaining Celestial ships pulled back. Cheers erupted across the bridge. The alien crew looked at the humans with a new expression, not just fear now, but awe. "Did we win?" Betty asked as she and Frank returned to the bridge. "For now," Lisa said, "but they'll be back. And next time, they'll come prepared for humans." Paul looked around at his fellow humans. "What makes us so special? Why are we able to do these things?" Before anyone could answer, a communication came through from one of the Alliance ships. "Commander Hayes," a voice said, "we've captured a Celestial officer. He says he knows the truth about humans." The captured Celestial sat in the center of the secure room. It looked almost human, but its skin glowed faintly with an inner light, and its eyes were completely black. Its hands were bound with energy restraints. Lisa, Paul, and the other humans stood facing it. Admiral Wilson's hologram watched from the corner. "Why are you afraid of humans?" Lisa asked the Celestial. The being tilted its head, studying the humans with its dark eyes. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You should not exist," it said simply. Paul stepped forward. "What does that mean?" "Every species in the universe follows rules," the Celestial continued. "Rules of evolution, of physics, of cosmic law. But humans are a mistake." The room fell silent. Frank crossed his arms. "That's not much of an explanation." The Celestial's glow pulsed slightly. "Humans were not designed by the universe's natural laws. You are glitches in reality, existing partially outside the rules that govern all other life. Betty frowned. You make us sound like computer errors. A fitting comparison. The Celestial agreed. The universe is structured with certain constants. All life forms evolve according to these constants, except humans. Kevin, who had been quiet, spoke up. Is that why I can heal people by willing it to happen? Yes, the Celestial said. Your minds connect to reality in ways no other species can. You imagine possibilities that should not be possible, and somehow they become real. Nicole leaned forward. But we've never had these abilities on Earth. Because you were imprisoned there, the Celestial replied. Quarantined. This shocked everyone in the room. Quarantined. Lisa repeated. By whom? By us. By others like us. The ancient species who understand the danger you represent. Hall stepped closer to the Celestial. How long have humans been trapped on Earth? Millions of your years. Whenever you advance too far, we would reset your civilization. You've been destroying human civilizations. Admiral Wilson's hologram flickered with anger. To protect the universe, the Celestial insisted. Humans replicate and evolve rapidly. You adapt instantly to new situations. You break rules you don't even know exist. That doesn't make us dangerous, Betty argued. The Celestial's glow brightened. Doesn't it? In just a few hours, 5 untrained humans defeated ships and technology that conquered hundreds of worlds. You operated complex systems you had never seen before. You predicted our movements. You altered the fabric of space to move your ship in ways that should be impossible. The humans looked at each other, suddenly understanding the fear they had seen in the alien crew's eyes. We sent our invasion force when we detected your species attempting space travel. The Celestial continued. It was meant to be preventative. To stop you before you spread beyond your prison. Prison, Paul repeated, the word hanging heavy in the air. If what you're saying is true, Nicole asked, why did the ritual work? Why could we be summoned here? The Celestial seemed to shrink slightly. The ritual was created as a fail-safe, a way to reach into the quarantine if the Guardians ever needed human abilities. It was never meant to be used. Frank laughed without humor. So you kept us as weapons, just in case you needed us. And now you have loosed yourselves upon the stars, the Celestial said. It is too late to stop the infection. Infection. Kevin's voice was sharp. We're people, not a disease. You are cosmic anomalies. The Celestial insisted. Your very existence threatens the stability of reality. Given time, humans will consume everything, not through malice, but through their fundamental nature. Lisa turned to the humans. Do you believe any of this? Paul looked at his hands, remembering how they had known exactly how to operate alien weapons. It would explain a lot. So what happens now? Betty asked. Do we help these people who summoned us, or are we really some kind of universe-ending threat? The Celestial watched them with its dark eyes. That choice, it said softly, is precisely what makes you so terrifying. The 5 humans gathered in a quiet corner of the ship after the Celestial was taken back to its cell. Each of them struggled with the truth they had just learned. So we're the monsters the universe fears, Frank said, breaking the silence. Paul shook his head. We're not monsters. We're just different. Different enough to scare beings that call themselves gods, Betty pointed out. Kevin paced around the small room. I became a nurse to help people, not to threaten the universe. Nicole sat quietly for a moment, then spoke. Think about it. All living things evolve to fit their environment. But what if our environment was reality itself? What if we adapted to break the rules rather than follow them? Lisa entered the room, accompanied by Admiral Wilson, who had arrived on a shuttle. The humans fell silent. We need to make a decision, the Admiral said. The Alliance leadership is divided. Some want to return you to Earth and seal the quarantine again. And the others? Paul asked. The others see you as our best hope against not just the Celestials, but other threats we face. Betty crossed her arms, So we're either too dangerous to let loose or too useful to send home. The Admiral nodded. Essentially, yes. Frank stood up straight. If there are things out there threatening innocent worlds, I say we help. We use whatever strange abilities we have to protect people. But what if the Celestial is right? Kevin asked. What if our presence eventually causes more harm than good? Paul walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Throughout human history, we've faced the same question. New technology, new ideas, they can all be used to help or harm. Nickel joined him at the window. We could solve problems other species can't. See solutions they never imagined. Outside the room, Alliance crew members passed by. Some still looked at the humans with fear, but others now showed respect, even gratitude. Lisa stepped forward. I have a proposal. We form a special division, human advisors and problem solvers. You would help us face threats, but under careful observation. You mean with safeguards in place in case we go rogue? Frank said bluntly. Lisa didn't deny it. Yes. Paul turned back to the group. I was supposed to teach a class on ancient civilizations tomorrow. Instead, I learned that human civilization is older than we ever imagined and has been reset multiple times. We can't go back to our old lives knowing what we know now, Betty said. They all fell silent, considering their options. If we stay, Kevin finally said, I want to focus on healing. On using whatever strange connection I have to help people, not hurt them. And I want to explore, Nicole added, to understand the universe that apparently doesn't understand us. The Admiral looked at the humans with a mixture of hope and caution. So you'll help us? Paul looked at each of his fellow humans, receiving nods from all of them. Yes, we'll help, but as partners, not weapons. The Admiral agreed. The decision was made. The humans would stay among the stars. Word spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The quarantine had been broken. Humans were loose among the stars. Some civilizations began preparations for war, others for alliance, but all understood that the cosmic order had forever changed. 3 weeks later, Paul stood alone on the observation deck of the Defender. The ship had been repaired and was patrolling the borders of Alliance space. Through the massive windows, he could see stars stretching endlessly before him. He held a cup of coffee in his hand, something the ship's food systems had learned to make for the humans. He took a sip and smiled at the infinite possibilities now open to humanity. Behind him, 2 alien officers whispered as they passed by. They don't even realize what they are, said one. That's what makes them so terrifying. Paul heard them, but kept his eyes on the stars. Perhaps they were right to be afraid. But perhaps humanity's strange nature was exactly what the universe needed. A glitch in the system, a new way of thinking, a species that could imagine the impossible and then make it real. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in millions of years, it was humans who would decide their own destiny.